I was working at the 108th Street LRT station in Edmonton. It's the underground LRT station. My apprentice was named Randy, and he was married to a girl whose dad owned the company that was electrical contractor that was doing all the electrical. I remember me and Randy would be working together, and we were putting up I can't remember, it was 3 runs or 4 runs of 6-inch rigid conduit, and this stuff is really heavy. So we're using 36-inch pipe wrenches, and we're putting up the hangers, and we're drilling into the concrete overhead. So we're up on 4 sections of scaffolding, and we just did this day after day after day. So we kind of got into a routine. I remember Randy was always pissed off at the world first thing in the morning. We had to have a pick-me-up chat for about 15-20 minutes, something like that, and then he would slowly come around, I don't know, have his coffee or a cigarette or whatever, and then he'd kind of get going, and then we'd be good for the rest of the day. We had a little system going. We had we were putting up, the hangers were ready rod, and the ready rod was at least, I think, 4 feet long. So we'd drill in our hole, put in the anchor, put in the 4-foot length of ready rod. Now, with ready rod, you of course have to run a nut all the way up that 4 feet of ready rod, and there's no nut driver that you can buy that's going to run that nut. We wanted to use a drill. We're not going to do that by hand, right? So he and we invented this little nut driver thing out of 3/4 EMT pipe, and just hammered the end to fit a nut, and then we would drive it up with the drill. And it was a relatively simple job. It's a lot of muscle work, but we were doing this for months. And he and we put our names. We took our Sharpies and we wrote our names on the pipe, so that 100 years later, if they ever did maintenance or changed the ceiling on 108th Street station, you'll find my name and Randy's name written there and the date that we were there. This would have been 1984, maybe, around there, 83, 84, something like that. Well, we're on 4 sections of scaffolding, and we're running along what would have been the rail bed. And, you know, there's a bunch of other electricians there doing other things. There was this one English guy. He had a British accent, and he was running something else. I don't know what. But our scaffolding was kind of beside what he was doing, and he would climb up our scaffolding to eye something out, and he wasn't really using our scaffolding to mount it or to do anything other than simply look if he's going in a straight line. Now, our scaffolding was slightly changing position. We're of course going down the direction of the pipe, but we're also going from side to side a little bit, because we wanted to have one side of our scaffolding was pipe supplies, and the other side was for working area, for mounting the pipe in place on the hangers. So this guy would climb up, you know, the ends. Occasionally we'd see him there. And then this one time, the way our scaffolding was positioned, he didn't want to climb up the end of the scaffold. He climbed up the side. Now, the side of a scaffolding, if you ever look closely, it's just a bunch of X pieces. And those X pieces were not meant to be climbed on. Now, picture this. Our top of our scaffold, we had We had 6-inch pipe on one side. On the other side, we had just one length of either 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch electrical metallic tubing, 10-foot long piece, just sitting there on the side of the scaffolding. And so for us, it was at waist height, and it was held up by just the very small difference in height between the corners and the horizontal ends of the scaffold. So that's not much. Now, in addition to that, I was putting the drill with the nut driver, the homemade nut driver bit, into the corner of the scaffolding. The corner of the scaffolding is a hollow pipe. So it was the perfect spot to put this drill with this very long nut driver bit on. So the piece of 3/4 inch EMT that was laying horizontally was held in place partly by that drill with the bit in the corner. So now we have a guy climbing up the X pieces, okay? And I turn around, I see him there, and he's hanging onto the X piece. Then he comes up a little bit more. I turn around to do something else, and then I turn back around and I lift my drill with that long bit out of the corner piece. Now guess what? This guy had grabbed onto that horizontal loose piece of 3/4 inch EMT pipe, and he was leaning back on it slightly. That means that it had butted up against the drill bit, and he had some weight on it. He was bouncing like that, which means when I pulled out the drill with the bit, there's nothing holding that top piece. He went falling backwards, and I remember this in slow motion. To me, it happened in slow motion. He went falling backwards 4 sections of scaffolding. And I can't remember how high a piece of scaffolding was, maybe 5 feet or something. So that's 20 feet, right? So he fell backwards. I saw him go all the way down. I was so shocked. I'm thinking, why did he... I kind of put it all together in my head on his way down, because he went down holding that piece of pipe. And I'm standing there holding this drill. He hit the concrete, not only the concrete, but he hit the part, one of those studs that hold the rail, the actual rail, into place at the LRT station. You'll see in the LRT, if you look at how the rails are held down, they're held down by these studs that come out of the concrete, and there's this giant springy-like thing that they pound in horizontally, and it grips down on the rail. Well, he hit one of those, and it kind of went into his skull or something like that. He was alive. Called an ambulance, they hauled him out of there. He was still alive. That was a bad day. So it was months, and I kept working there, and nobody blamed me. I had to fill out a report for workers' comp, and I mean, he was totally at fault. He should never have been climbing up the X pieces like that, and then he should never have hung onto a piece of loose EMT. It's just a bad way to conduct yourself in such a dangerous place. One other weird thing I should mention, when I was working in the trade, the electrical trade, I went all the way through. I was the youngest master electrician in Edmonton when I became a master electrician. Right after I became a master electrician, it was 1982, and there was a worldwide recession. All my friends got laid off in the trade. I was out of work off and on for 6 years. And I remember from the day when I started in the trade to the day that I was out, unemployed for months and months, I had learned, like, I'm not a very large person. I'm 5'9" and 150 pounds average. But I was slogging around these, 6-inch rigid pipe and a tool belt and heavy tools. You really learn how to shift your weight around to work efficiently, to conserve energy. And people have told me that I've got some kind of a swagger. For my small size, I have some kind of swagger. I know exactly what that's from. It's from hauling around heavy tool belts, wearing a heavy tool belt, and then hauling this pipe around, and these really heavy tools. So it's funny how jobs change you. And then I was unemployed for so long, and my second wife said, look, why don't you look at something else? So I went back to Grant MacEwan, and I took microcomputer management, where they taught databases, spreadsheets, and third generation language programming. And I really applied myself to that. It was just so much fun. I loved doing it, and I was just like a sponge. I was drinking in all the knowledge. And I found that after, I mean, to be able to concentrate, the one thing about programming is you have to devote 100% of your brain to what it is you're doing. And that's exhausting. People don't realize how many calories your brain burns doing computer programming. Something that is required. You got to keep 16 different things in mind at one time, and all these different variables, all these different processes. You got to figure out how you're going to approach this problem, which thing you're going to do first, which thing you're going to do second. And really, when it comes down to, like, this was procedural programming language that I was using. So, my goodness, like, I'd go home. I remember I could only concentrate about 15 minutes in the beginning, and it took months and months of just showing up after school, on Saturdays, 8 hours a day on the weekends, just programming. And your brain changes. Your brain changes to the point there when you go home, you have to think, okay, I have this task. I have to get undressed to go to bed. What do I take off first? And you're actually consciously thinking about, I have to take my belt off, got to take my pants off, I'm going to take my socks off. Which sock do I take off first, left or right? And you get used to everything that you do is a process. You're nowhere near a computer, you're not typing in a computer language, but your brain is now thinking in a procedural manner for absolutely everything that you want to accomplish. I built up my ability to program and concentrate to 4 hours. 4 solid hours. No breaks. Maybe a real quick pee, but other than that, you're back at it. So that actually paid off also when I went to Florida. Jennifer and Wendy and I and Stu, I think it was. I can't remember. Or maybe John Adamus. I don't know. So there was 4 of us. Oh no, it was John Adamus, right? So the 4 of us went to Florida to do some tennis, and we went in the wintertime, and one of the things we did as kind of a side excursion was go to this place that it does some kind of a brain analysis of your brain waves, and it shows you how much you can concentrate or something like that. So we jumped in the car. This guy he was actually a tennis instructor who got us interested in this. Well, we jumped in the rental car and we take off, and then first thing we have a flat tire. Well, this tennis instructor dude, he has no idea what to do. Well, I mean, I've changed so many tires in my past. I just said, well, okay, I can do it. Just open the trunk, see if we have a... Now, it was a rental, so luckily they had a jack and they had everything. I had that tire changed in 15 minutes, and he was all amazed. And so we carried on our way. We went to the place and we had all our brains analyzed. And then they were saying, they said, oh, at the beginning, the guys who did that, they said, you know, the average person, they're going to show up as a 1, and like the 4 is the best, and 1 is like average, but it's also the worst. So they started analyzing. Before they built it all up, and they said, well, we've only had one person to get a 4, and that was your tennis instructor. Everybody else, the closest anybody else has come was a 3, but 99% of the people we test are in the 1 category. So we all get tested. So then, guess what I do? They put the stuff on my head, and I just started thinking about programming. I wasn't even programming, I was just thinking about it. Did that, and the results come back, and then they're all freaking amazed. They said, Kevin, you're the only other person who came out a 4 with your ability to concentrate. And the thing is, think of all the people that they tested, right? These are very, very educated people. Now, whatever it is they're educated in must not have required as much concentration as just programming. And I'm not a special programmer. I'm not like some kind of programming god. I'm the average programmer. So, I don't know, that was kind of weird. Hope you like my random stories.